And now for your listening pleasure, here's Pulizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, my friends. This is This Old Marketing, and it's wonderfully and most amazingly brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. I'm Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 399 of our wonderful little show for Friday, October 27th, 2023. And with me, as always, as he always is, my colleague and a guy who... well, he doesn't need Taylor Swift to basically attend his meetings to double his stats. Yes, Mr. Joe Pulizzi.
I think it would. I think I would be at least twice as productive.
Really?
If Taylor was standing right here, I don't know. I don't know, but I'm willing to try it.
Yes. Well, for those of it, so what we're referring to, for all of you out there who may not have seen this news item, Travis Kelce, who is, of course, very famously now dating Taylor Swift, and occasionally, it seems, Taylor Swift attends Travis's games, the Kansas City Chiefs games, and when she does, his stats double. So, conspiracy, basically.
Okay, so is
she calling in plays? Is she the new offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs?
So first of all, I think the whole thing is adorable. A lot of people
totally,
are all upset.
Totally
about
adorable.
it. I think it's great because it honestly feels like they have a really good thing going. I hope it works. So I'm rooting for them. I know a lot of people aren't. There's a lot of haters out there.
There is a lot of haters out there. Yeah.
But this is what I've noticed, and you correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that when Taylor Swift is in attendance at a Kansas City Chiefs football game, they call different plays. They call for more Kelce plays, and that's
almost certainly the case, because I mean, whether it's correlation or causation, we don't know. But what's not in doubt is his stats double, his number of yards double, his number of catches double.
99 yards a game versus like 50 yards a game.
That's right.
When she's not present. So here's what happens. Pre-game, Andy Reid's there. He's got his clipboard.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, staff, let's get together. Is she here? They say, yes, she is here.
This is your Andy Reid impression. I
don't have an Andy Reid impression. Okay. Although I do like his commercials, his State Farm commercials.
Yeah.
He's a pretty funny cat. So I think that he said, okay, Taylor's here. Let's get out the secondary clipboard with the heavy Kelce plays. And that's what they do. I think that's it.
I think that's it. I actually think it goes one step further. I think Taylor's in the locker room for the pregame meeting and saying, I think you should run this one and this one and this one and that one. and they're all Travis plays,
I love
right?
that. Is that your Taylor Swift impression?
Yeah, that's my.
Is that it? And this one,
and
this one,
and this one,
that one,
and that one.
Or you're gonna have trouble if you don't. If you don't do that. Anyways, I'm all for it, and I think that it's fantastic and whatever. But
yes, and what we almost talked about. Beyond the Travis and is the other news this week is, of course, that we now have a new Speaker of the House, which is troubling and I guess good in a, I don't know, sort of weird way. I mean,
well, I saw the guy. I don't know anything about that? I know it's a Republican from Louisiana. It's the shortest tenure or experience of any that's ever held the speaker position. But I saw Mike Johnson as the name, and I'm like, Mike Johnson, I'm all in on Mike Johnson. Great linebacker for the Cleveland Browns. Mike Johnson was amazing, all pro many, many years. And then I go and I look at a picture and I said, that's not Mike Johnson, the linebacker.
No,
from the Browns.
It is not.
I was actually
not.
I was actually quite disappointed.
Yeah.
I wanted Emmer to be the speaker who was in line to get the speakership, but then Trump on Truth Social slammed him or something like that, and then immediately lost favor and Emmer had to
of
back up.
course.
I wanted Emmer's pro Bitcoin. So I'm like, whoever, that's like my number one vote right now. Whoever's
pro Bitcoin.
That I was talking to my youngest about that, and I was like, how are you voting these days? I'm like, whoever the pro crypto person is, that's who I'm voting for. He's like, oh, that's great to know that all these big important issues are out there, Dad, and you're voting for the pro crypto guy. So that's right. Important. Yeah, it is. Financial freedom is really important.
It's really not. It's really not. It's just really not that important.
Do you have any feelings either way about linebacker Johnson taking over the speakership?
I'm troubled by the whole thing because of his positions on things, but I'm not surprised, to put it that way.
Yes, I mean, for those,
I was hopeful that saner heads would prevail and that they would actually pick someone who was not completely insane. And it would seem that the small, what do they call them? They have a name for them. There's 8 of them, and I can't remember what it is. It's like it's not the Hateful Eight, but it's something like that. It's something. It's that whole Freedom Caucus group.
Yeah,
and they basically won. They won. Yeah, they won. Yeah, they won.
It's it is. And by the way, as everyone listening to this knows, we never get political on this show. But the fact that this guy has made a living off of making sure that a marriage can only be with a man and a woman is a little bit.
Yeah, it's a bridge too far.
Both of us,
that's what we say.
We're. I don't understand that traditional family values have to be that way, according to. So that's the one thing I did read, that he was an attorney and focused on many cases about making sure that those types of marriages were not allowed outside of just a man and a woman. So that's unfortunate. We need more openness, I think, from that scenario. Yes, who knows? I guess the most important thing is maybe they're back to business.
Well, hopefully
maybe it's not.
Hopefully they'll get back to some business and actually, take care of the housekeeping that's been, I mean, literally the housekeeping that's been stacking up since they've been unable to select somebody.
But is it? I really did like the speaker pro tempore, Patrick McHenry. Is there not a better name for a congressperson?
It's perfect.
Than Patrick McHenry. It sounds very United States-ish.
It is
very patriotic.
Yes.
Vote for Pat. It's like the distinguished gentleman. Vote for Jeff Johnson. A vote for Jeff Johnson is a vote for. Remember that movie, Distinguished Gentleman, with Eddie Murphy?
Oh my!
That was the one where Jeff Johnson was the congressperson. Is old Caucasian gentleman that passed away. And nobody knew about it. So Eddie Murphy comes in, has no record of running for Congress at all.
That's right.
And basically comes in and uses his middle name, which is Jefferson, and runs as Jeff Johnson. And never, like, all the commercials are just Jeff Johnson. And he gets the nomination. And anyways, if you want to see a really good movie from the early 90s that, I don't know if it's really good.
Really, I was going to say I'm not sure. Really good I would go there, but with you, but
it's hard to find that movie. I wanted
it's a movie.
It's hard to find. You can't find it on Netflix or anything yet. You have to watch
there's
it
a reason
on YouTube.
For that. There's a reason for that. Yeah.
Jeff Johnson. Anyways, What else we got going on before we get started? We have to talk about this. Sorry, apologies to everyone, but both our teams are 4-2.
Yeah,
going into week 8 of the season, and this has not happened. This is episode 399, almost 400. And I don't think there's ever been a time when our combined records were 8-4 at this point in the season. So
no,
this is monumental.
But it's monumental for the Browns, that's for sure. There's
it's like the Cowboys. We're always 4-2 or 5-1.
Yeah,
It is the Browns. We've gotten lucky the past 2 weeks.
But I keep telling you, week after week, the Browns they're good. It's a good team. It's a good team.
We need a quarterback.
Yes, you do.
It sounds like Deshaun Watson is now officially hurt.
That's only good news for Browns fans. Yeah.
we don't have enough money. We gave him all the money. We don't have enough money to get a proper quarterback.
All I'm suggesting, I'm not suggesting from a financial standpoint. I mean, from an actual playing the game standpoint. Yes, that's good news.
I was listening to so basically last week he was in the game very short period of time before he came out hurt. I'm not saying he wasn't hurt or was hurt. I don't know anything about it, but I was listening to it on the radio, and his last pass, he was 1 of 5 for 5 yards and an interception, which is not great stat line. But the guy on the radio who was calling the game said that interception throw. He says there wasn't a lot on that throw. Like he was saying that there was a problem with Deshaun's arm.
Yeah.
And it comes out this week that there's some kind of rotator cuff injury that a lot of pitchers get. I don't know.
I'm sure it's from, you know what would probably fix it would be, going to get a good massage. Yeah. A good massage would probably fix it. Yeah. There you go.
If I knew that was coming.
Yeah.
And deservedly so. Yeah. But you're probably right.
Yeah.
You're probably right. I would take anything. But here we just need a competent, you know what? We need like a Trent Dilfer type quarterback.
Or Baker Mayfield. Ooh. Too soon.
You think Baker wouldn't?
Too soon.
I don't think Baker would come back.
No. If he's not going to, he's doing he's fine
Baker,
down in
If Baker
Tampa
has
Bay.
any shred of dignity, he would not come back after how they treated him in Cleveland.
100%.
Even in those progressive commercials, he never got the keys to the stadium.
That's right. Exactly.
It's terrible.
That's true.
It's terrible.
Anyways, absolutely true.
What kind of show we got going on?
We got a good show. We have a fun show to talk a little bit about, which is we'll start and we'll talk a little bit about X, formerly known as Twitter. I think that's the official name now. X, formerly known as Twitter.
I think it is.
And by the way, for those of you who are watching this on video, you will notice that I am now sort of purporting or promoting my Threads channel. I'm fully out on Twitter. I am out. We could talk a little bit about that if you want.
Yeah, I want to hear. Can we talk about it now? Did you close your account?
I have not closed the account yet, only because I was going to wait until my Blue, because I quit Blue. I canceled it, but I'm still up till November or whatever. And I was just going to see how things go for the rest of this month. But yeah, it's at some point soon, I will actually fully delete my account because I'm done. There's no there. I think
because of,
well, probably the same reasons where I took my break earlier this year on Twitter, but basically the net of it is I did. So the reason I liked Twitter were for two primary reasons. One, I enjoyed the content. I enjoyed the feed, right? So my followers, as well as those that I followed, the conversation, the content there was a great place for me to sort of keep up, right? Show ideas, all kinds of things that would come through that feed. That's gone. My feed is now completely devolved. It's, and there's a lot of that is because a lot of people have left. A lot of the sort of, people that, I follow have just completely, gotten off of Twitter full stop. But some of that is also because of the algorithm and the way it works now. It's like it's all Elon, all politics, all, just ickiness all the time now. So my For You feed is just gone. It's just gone. The second reason, and probably the main marketing reason that I was on Twitter, was because it was a significant traffic driver to my content, my owned media. So it was basically built to pull in people to my blog or to my website or those kinds of things. And it used to be the number one, my Twitter feed used to be the number one traffic generator, organic traffic generator
outside referrals, so social
to the website.
Referrals,
yep,
it was number
exactly.
one. Okay, interesting.
I did a test over the last 6 weeks. I just stopped posting to Twitter full stop. I would reply to things, or I might say something, have a comment on something, but I stopped posting my original content. Looked at my traffic analytics, and traffic actually went up. Weirdly, my traffic went up, but my Twitter traffic changed not a bit. So meaning that whatever traffic I'm now currently getting from Twitter has nothing to do with me sharing any content. It's all other people sharing my content. So basically that means there's no reason for me to be there anymore. And at that point it's like, yeah, I'm not going to waste my time. So I'm going all in on Threads. I'm gonna start playing there. And I will tell you, I had one post on Threads this week, and it got more engagement than I've gotten on Twitter all year.
It has been improving.
Yeah,
I've been sort of watching from afar, not really doing anything on either platform, but I would say that there is, and we'll talk about this in a second, but it's interesting to see where Threads is going. Thank you for that detail. Well, I know it's our first story up, but what else are we covering today?
So we're going to talk about X and where this is actually kind of breaking news, right? Where the usage numbers are now out, confirming a lot of what we actually talked about last week. So we'll get into that, and then we'll get into the fact that Meta is up to its eyeballs in lawsuits. It seems like everybody is suing the platform these days, and now dozens of U.S. states are following suit and talking about how that's harming the mental health of young people. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then sort of following on sort of in a thematic way, we'll talk about trust in media. So the new Gallup poll is out, and trust in media is as low as it's ever been. So we'll talk about what are some of the ramifications for that in marketing as well as content creation. And then, of course, we'll add on to a story there, because there's also a study out that talks about how B2B buyers, they don't trust software providers or technology providers' content. And so that sort of fits into that sort of idea. And we'll talk about that. Then we'll get to our rants and raves section where, I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to have a rave and a rant, and I'll rave a little bit about a new local voucher from the government in Washington, D.C., and how that might fund local journalism. Very interesting program there. And then also I'll rant a little bit about, an article that talks about how marketing needs better marketing. It's like, oh boy. Okay. All right. Let's talk about that.
It's so meta.
And then you're going to rave about TikTok, which is very surprising.
I have a short rave on TikTok. Yes. Yeah, and I have a little commentary / rave on some B2B content creation stuff that I'm finding very interesting. So I'll go into some detail about that. So that will be fun.
And it's going to be a chock-a-block full show.
Is chock-a-block a real word? Real word?
It is a real word. It is a real word.
It's in the Webster's official dictionary.
Pretty sure.
Or just the Urban Dictionary?
No. I think chock-a-block is definitely, yeah.
Okay.
Chock-a-block with chuckleheads. That's what we should name the show now. Chock-a-block.
Nobody wants this. Nobody asked for it.
There it is.
Nobody's going to do it.
There it is. All right, let's get to our first story, shall we? It comes to us courtesy of Axios, and as I mentioned, it is really breaking news. It literally appeared in the feed a couple of hours before we went to record this show. And the article's headline is X, Twitter, worldwide app downloads is, let's just say in the toilet. It has really just gone downhill over the last year. And the article opens up by saying X, formerly Twitter, has hemorrhaged users and advertisers in its first year under Elon Musk's ownership, according to new data provided to Axios. Investors who backed the deal hoped Musk's track record and vision would supercharge X's popularity and value. That has not happened, at least in the short term. Well, I think in the long term is safe too, but okay, in the short term, Fidelity, one equity backer, was holding Twitter at 61% discount through the end of August. Ouch. Banks are expected to take a 15% discount on debt they've thus far been unable to unload, per the Wall Street Journal. By the numbers, app downloads fell roughly 38% between October and September. Usage has decreased, with active users falling 14.8% globally and 17.8% in the U.S. Average time spent, daily user fell 2%. Sessions dipped 4%. User churn, or basically users who stopped using the app, I'm raising my hand there, increased actually more than 30%. So basically 30% more churn year over year as per last year. And web traffic was down 7% globally and 11.6% in the US. However, as the article points out, this was my favorite part of the whole article, there were some bright spots.
This is the best.
Global first-time downloads of X were flat in the past year compared to the year prior. Oh, that's really good.
And the best one.
And the best bright spot, and I just know the writer was sort of juicily writing this. Traffic to Elon Musk's personal profile and posts were up 96% year over year in September.
What a great thing to put in a release.
I love it.
Fantastic.
I love it. CEO Linda Yaccarino has claimed that the platform had 500 million users all over the world showing up multiple times per day.
Where? What? How? How does Yaccarino know this?
She does not know this.
Where is she getting this data from?
She's probably being told this. So
Elon, what can I say? Okay.
Yeah.
Multiple times a day from 500 million users. Okay, check.
Yeah, that's right. That's basically the refresh on your app. You're going to hit the Twitter to refresh the feed and feed the email that automatically goes out. So it's not humans doing that. But anyway, what do you think? I mean, is Twitter dead? I mean, are we finally going to see the death of Twitter?
No. I
early next year.
No, Twitter is not dying. It is changing, though. It's actually
to what? Into what?
Okay, so let me put it to you this. Let's say you have an email newsletter. Let's say your email newsletter goes out to 10,000 people.
I can't wait to hear this.
But you stop promoting it.
Okay.
And you stop promoting it, and you're just going to the same people all the time. Well, you naturally have a number of people unsubscribe from that, but your audience never grows, never changes. It's just the same people. That's what's happening to Twitter right now. They're not adding new people. They're keeping, they had a bunch of people like yourselves, like leave the platform. So you have a smaller base, and that base seems to be learning or talking about a lot of the same things. And I mean, it's hard not to look at many of the articles that talk about the new Fox News being Twitter. It's leaning more right. And a lot of that is because 96% traffic increase to Elon's profile. That's what Elon is, a little bit right wing. So they're getting that kind of news.
Yeah, but that's just the algorithm. I mean, I think that's we've talked about this many times on the show, where one of the reasons that Twitter worked and Truth Social and the others didn't is because if you get everybody in a room together that agree on things, then ultimately there's nothing to talk about. And so part of the reason that Twitter worked was because of the friction created, right? So people shouting at each other and disagreeing and flaming each other. And so part of the reason that you got so much high engagement there on Twitter was because of how easy it was to get into skirmishes, right? Verbal skirmishes. And if that's gone, I just don't see, I see it you can see it sort of degrading to become a Truth Social where everybody agrees with each other. And then what's there to talk about? I mean, other than to go, praise Elon for all of his things that he does.
Well, I don't think we're to that point yet. And even on the Truth Social standpoint, I got an email from Truth Social saying that Donald Trump welcomed Joe Biden to the Truth Social network last week. So that was interesting. That the president of the United States is on Truth Social now. So they did it for
the laws, right? I mean, I think it's a very smart campaign move, but it's the campaign, right? Remember, it's the campaign that's on Truth Social, not POTUS, right?
It's Joe Biden.
It's the Biden campaign, so it's not Joe Biden tweeting.
It's not Joe Biden. It is the Biden. See, I read the headline. It said welcomes Joe Biden.
Yeah, I mean, but it's the Joe Biden campaign. I mean, it's Dark Brandon. That if you go look at their feed, it's definitely they're trolling. I mean, I think the last tweet was the fact that they now have more followers than Trump does on Truth Social or something like that. So, I mean, it's just crazy.
But let's just put it out there for the people listening to this. Can X still serve as a marketing channel if you invest a large amount of time in it and do it a certain way? The answer is yes. But I think you and I aren't willing to do that.
I don't think that's true anymore.
I really don't. If I look at content entrepreneurs like Tim Stoddard, Jay Klaus, Justin Welsh, they are killing it on Twitter, killing it. And they're ultimately you can't link to anything anymore, because if you link to something, you're going to get hidden. So it's got to be this no link social strategy where somebody becomes interested in you and they trust you for whatever you're doing. And most of them are threads where they're putting out, basically it's an article and they're doing it in 10 or 12 or 14 different tweets. And if you get interested enough, you end up following them or clicking back to their site, and you have to go to their profile to do that. So that's where the link comes in, and you have to go all the way back to the profile. So the most important place for, based on, you sending out your content, the most important place for a click, the only place for a click, is your profile. That's the way you do it. So if you're out there and you have a Twitter X strategy of sending out a link that goes to your article or your blog post or your podcast, you're getting nothing. You're getting no algorithm help, and it's going to hurt your overall strategy. So you have to figure out something like Jay and Justin have done and make sure that you are basically putting in no link content that is truly, truly helpful, at least in the marketing case, at least in our area.
Well, that's a fair point. I mean, while you were talking, I went out and looked at Jay's profile, right? So he's got fewer followers than I do, but he's getting
way more
10x 10x the engagement that I get, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, easily 10x the engagement that I get on any of my stuff. And then you're right. Most of his posts are basically threads on, and which is most of his content anyway. Here's what I did to be, he sort of runs his business very transparently, which is amazing of him and very smart. But basically he says, here's what I'm doing right now to be successful. And so he's basically, what I'm seeing now is his pinned tweet from January of this year is still getting traction, right? So basically his pinned tweet of what he's done is getting traction.
The point is that if you want to invest a lot of time into X,
fair enough,
and you have a very strong strategy like these people we just talked about do, you can make it work. But we can't do it the way we were given a gift years ago by all the social networks. There's not any social networks out there that are going to reward you in any way if you link to something.
But I keep seeing, like, I keep using the content marketing world as a great sort of barometer here, right? Which is, so the data is in from content marketing world, and Twitter usage was down by 60%. Right, across the entire event, not just me in my little keynote, but across the board was down 60%. LinkedIn was up 20%. Okay. So it's just that is a shift. That's an undeniable shift, right, of a marketing community that is leaving or doesn't care about Twitter and is moving to LinkedIn or other platforms.
I think that for our audience of marketers, that's totally fair, and that's the right move.
Yeah,
because you get away from the vitriol that's on X and any of the political.
Fair enough.
And honestly, I mean, if you listen to people like you've got, Kara Swisher and Galloway, they don't want to spend any money or help Elon. I mean, it's very personal. They're like anti-Elon.
Sure.
And there's a lot of people that feel that way. So
for me, it had nothing to do with, I mean, Elon's a man-child and I, have issues with it, but my leaving Twitter had very little to do with Elon and mostly to do with the impact that he's had on what used to be one of my favorite networks to use. Well, and it's just demonstrably bad now. It's just, I mean, I can absolutely demonstrably show with data and with actual screenshots that the platform for me has gotten worse, like demonstrably worse.
That I hear what you're saying, and the same for me. I mean, I basically tweet once a week if I'm lucky on that platform. But I'm just saying, if somebody said to you that you only had X, that was it, and you had to make it work, you could make it work. You could invest a huge amount of time. And I don't have to invest that much time into LinkedIn I can do one really good quality post a day on LinkedIn and respond to comments and respond to other people and get a lot out of LinkedIn. And I'd have to do, I think, 10x more on Twitter to make it work until I get that. Cause I mean, as in your case, like all the people that have followed us over these years, like they don't see any of our stuff anymore.
Actually, I'm gonna going to rephrase that. So I'm looking at Jay's feed now. Yeah, his regular posts, like he looks like he's posting once or twice a day, right? And he's, to your point, he's posting, the same stuff that he always posts, right? Here's how you be me. Basically, here's how you, here's what I'm doing, right, to succeed. He's not getting that much more engagement than I was getting at the end of the day, right? So the pinned tweet is getting amazing. His pinned thread is getting amazing engagement. Well, but on a day-to-day basis, he's not getting that much more.
I agree with that. But on an occasion, he gets a viral post in there that just goes crazy. And so the same thing for Tim Stoddard. Same thing for Justin Welsh. Yeah, I'm just saying. But you have to do all the work in the meantime, and to have the regular posts do their regular thing to even have the opportunity for viral.
Yeah,
to happen.
True.
So, anyways,
I mean, and then who knows what viral thing you're going to get by doing it too.
The issue. So just to wrap this whole thing up with X, the issue is that they're not growing their audience, and it works for a very few people. You got a lot of lurkers still that are out there, which is fine, but they're never going to be able to drive the amount of advertising that they drove in the past. And this company is valued at least according to Fidelity, 40% of what it was.
Yeah. I mean, at some point,
it's going down.
At some point, Elon has to make a decision, which is going to be.
Does he?
Yeah. At some point, he has to make a decision, because I have to think that at some point, the banks just want this off their books. They're just going to want this off their books. And so they have to declare BK or he has to buy all. He has
to buy them out. I think that's probably what happens. Is he gets a discount, he buys them back, and they say, forget it. We made a ton off you on Tesla. We'll forgive you.
That's right.
This little Twitter thing. X thing, that's right. Whatever. So,
well, speaking of not going BK, we should probably pay a couple of bills.
And let's do that now.
Here at This Old Marketing, we like our football and football metaphors. And something magical happens when the third quarter ends and the fourth quarter begins. The energy changes. The fourth quarter is where games are won, where champions are made, and in business, it's where sales teams become legends. That's why HubSpot built Sales Hub, to give sales reps the deal-making tools they need to win in Q4 and close the year strong. Sales Hub's prospecting workspace organizes your schedule, goals, and to-do list all in one place to save your team precious fourth quarter time. Smart Sequences help sales reps close deals faster than ever. And with an easy-to-use deal management tool, reps can find, track, and close deals all in one place. Plus, AI forecasting helps you accurately predict future success. That means less hoping for deals and more crushing targets. Put your sales teams on the fast track to winning Q4 with Sales Hub. You can learn more at HubSpot.com/sales. Let me tell you about a podcast that I think you're really going to love. It's called Marketing Made Simple, and it's hosted by Dr. J.J. Peterson, and of course brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. Now, Marketing Made Simple brings you practical tips, and it's going to make your marketing easy, and more importantly, well, it's going to make it work. For example, on one of the more recent episodes I listened to, I love that they talk about specific things that you can do in the fourth quarter to make your marketing work. I mean, we all know that the fourth quarter is where things get, well, let's just say interesting, right? But they focused this episode on some practical things that you can do to make the fourth quarter fantastic. Just a great podcast. And you can, of course, listen to Marketing Made Simple wherever you get your podcasts. So go try it out, won't you? It's Marketing Made Simple.
I like that little, I don't know, it feels like snow's falling or something like that. The music.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I'm actually quite rested. I wasn't calm before, but now I am, because I listened to the background music that you put together for that wonderful ad.
You know what I'm really into these days is there's a thing called binaural beats. Have you seen this? Ever heard of this?
No, I have not heard of it, but
so when I'm turning on music and I want to work, right? So it's very hard for me to work with music on because I get into music, right? I want to sing or I want to, get into the music and that distracts me. So I need like background music that doesn't distract me. And so when I found this, this concept called binaural beats, which are, there's different frequencies that you can sort of tune into, one for concentration, one for focus, one for relaxation, one for, they have all sorts of different sort of things that you can listen to. You can find them on YouTube. You can find them on Spotify. You can find them on Apple Music to a certain degree. And they're just really nice. It's just, it's a little bit like that, like what we just listened to, but it's a little more tones and stuff. It's really awesome.
What's the name of the thing where you listen to the whispering?
ASMR. Yeah.
ASMR. So this is different than ASMR.
Oh yes. Oh, yeah. This is different than ASMR. Yeah. This is It's just scratching on the microphone or the fingernails.
I know some people that are really into the ASMR stuff.
No. All right. We should probably not go down that road too far. Yeah.
I don't know. I am an ignorant soul when it comes to that type of stuff.
I'm sure you're
Ignorance
not.
is
I'm
bliss.
sure you're not.
I don't know. Okay, what do we got next?
All right, let's move on to our next story, which comes to us courtesy of Reuters, although just about everybody is covering this because it is big news. Meta's Instagram has been linked to depression. I think Facebook is included in this as well. I think it's Meta generally.
Instagram seems to be the big one, though. Right?
That seems to be the one where they're really focusing in on because I guess that's where more kids are. And basically, the article opens up by saying dozens of U.S. states are now suing Meta Platforms and its Instagram unit, accusing them of fueling a youth mental health crisis by making their social media platforms addictive. In a complaint filed on Tuesday, that's Tuesday of this week as we record, the attorneys general of 33 states, including California and New York, said Meta, which also operates Facebook, repeatedly misled the public about the dangers of its platform and knowingly induced young children and teenagers into addictive and compulsive social media use. As the quote from the complaint says, Meta has harnessed powerful and unprecedented technologies to entice, engage, and ultimately ensnare youth and teens. Oh my gosh. It's ensnare.
They really enjoyed that sentence.
I'm sure they did. In the complaint, it was like, ooh, what? There's a young lawyer somewhere who said we should say ensnare, and somebody in the meeting went, "Oh, that's perfect. That's such a great word."
The jury goes, ensnare, not ensnare.
Do we need to say ultimately ensnare?
Oh my God!
Do we need
tragically ensnare?
Yeah, tragically ensnare, ultimately ensnare. Then somebody brought up Hemingway and said, we need to remove all the adverbs, and then they moved on. All right. Anyway, its motive is profit, says the complaint. Children have long been appealing demographic for the business, which hopes to attract them as consumers at ages when they may be more impressionable and solidify brand loyalty. And the article goes on here to talk a little bit more about the fact that Meta's response was that it was disappointed. We're disappointed in the lawsuit. I'm sure they are. I'm sure they're very disappointed. Anyway, what is your take here? Where are we headed with this, and what the heck is going on?
So the answer is that yes, absolutely, Meta is working to build Instagram to be as addictive as possible for every user.
Right. That's
sort of the goal of the whole thing.
Right. Of course.
And yes, we know through many, 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 many studies out there that it is unhealthy. If in large doses, not in small doses necessarily, but in large doses, social media usage on TikTok and Instagram specifically is very negative for mental health.
Right.
So those are all pretty much true. Everybody should know this, I hope. The issue is not that. The issue is that historically, for a long, long time, Meta, Facebook, has put no guardrails on to stop kids from signing up. They have said that they have, and they have shown things, and they have put out press releases that they have, but they have not. Kids are signing up at a very young age. They're not idiots. Kids are very intuitive and smart. They figure out how they can get accounts and sign up and whatever. And it's actually rather still to this day, any kid can do this that knows how to work a smartphone. So they have to. The whole thing for this is to hopefully force Meta into this is the sad thing. If you look at what TikTok has done specifically in China with their social media apps, they have a strict 1 hour max per day rule for any kid on social media.
Sure.
And they lock them down.
Yeah.
Now we would probably think that is un-American to do that.
Of course. Well, there's no way.
But I'm just saying that is a solution. So what is the solution that Meta can do? They have to figure out a way to block certain people. Now, whether that's upload, like, for example, I'm Instagram verified. Did you go through this process?
Yes.
The Instagram.
Yes.
Yeah. You got your check mark?
I did.
Right. So you have to upload your driver's license.
Yep.
Or government ID.
Yep.
And it takes a little bit of time to do it. It's not all that easy to do it, but I am a huge proponent for that, to making sure that, and I think that 100%. Has to happen across all of social media.
Yep.
And if Meta does that blanket throughout everything, that will be a game changer and that will solve this problem. But at the same time, yesterday, I think as we record this, yesterday evening, Meta came out and blew the doors off of their financial results.
That's right.
Advertising up, new users are up, everything's
right.
up.
Yes.
And in a lot of cases, because there's no guardrails.
That's right.
There isn't. So I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, here's my only problem with this whole thing is that this is a little like that. Do you remember that? Okay. So remember when we were kids and when you were kids.
Well,
hold on.
Hold on.
You're going to go with me on this. Hold on. You're going to go with me here. Do you remember the Twisted Sister video where the guy from Animal House, the I can't remember his name, but the guy from Animal House.
What are you going to do with
your life? Exactly. And Twisted Sister's response to that was, I want to rock,
Rock.
Yeah. Great video. Anyway, this is to me the state's abdicating responsibility for what they should have done or should be doing, which is figuring out what the guardrails should be. In other words, instead of saying and legislating this or attempting to legislate, they're saying basically they're going out to Meta and they're saying, you're harming children, and what are you going to do about it? Right. And we don't know how to fix it, but you do. And Meta's incentive to do that is small because, as you said, they're blowing the door off their financial results. And so they look at it and say, well, we're doing stuff. And I have to say probably earnestly, right? I think there's they are making earnest attempts at doing things, right? Now, what they're obviously trying
looking
to do,
busy. Yes.
Looking busy.
Seeming like they're working on it.
And we can critique that and we can say it's wrong and what they're doing is ineffective, but they're trying things because the assumption is that they know something that we don't. In other words, they know, and short of stopping and preventing those kids, basically underage kids, from actually accessing the platform. In other words, doing what you just suggested, right? Mm-hmm. Which is limiting children to only an hour a day, which would probably mean limiting everybody to an hour a day, or in some ways creating some sort of registration system where you can't register unless you have a driver's license or you can prove the fact that you're over a certain age. Whatever those things are, all of them mean putting handcuffs behind them, right? So they're not going to do that. Those are the things that they're not going to do because it would obviously impede their business. They're just not going to do that willingly, right? So we know that, they know that, but instead of us saying, hey, listen, we're going to fix it, we're going to fix it for you, and basically put this legislation unless you start to do some of these things yourself, then I would think this has got more teeth. But basically this lawsuit, I mean, which kudos to getting any 30 states to actually agree on actually doing something in concert with each other. But I don't see this as being terribly effective until there's actually a threat there to Meta that is actually real, right? And until they say we're going to, either the federal government or state governments are going to start to limit this and be willing to do that, because like you said, it's going to be seen as un-American for so many reasons. We can't even get TikTok banned, much less limitations on Facebook or Instagram. So
and they won't. No, it's a great point. Here's what
this
happens.
feels so much like theater to me. Is
yes,
it just I guess that's my point.
It is. It absolutely is. Here's what happens. The 33 states that are involved in this case, they settle out of court for billions of dollars. By the way, just so you know, Meta is doing about $130+ billion a year in revenue right now.
Right.
They'll throw billions of dollars at something. Part of that will be an advertising marketing effort to try to tell kids not to be on
warning labels on cigarettes. We're warning labels on cigarettes.
It's exactly what this is, and nothing is going to happen because of in a lot of cases because of what you just said. If they're not going to ban a Chinese-owned social platform, they definitely aren't going to do anything with an American-run social media group. They want, and I know that they've got, and again, we've talked about this before many times. The social media, the Meta, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft have more lobbyists in the U.S. government than any other group. I think even more than cigarettes. It's social media is the number one because they are, and they're going to say every time, hey, you do something to us, restrict us, China gets a leg up. And they're throwing that out there at every chance they get. So you're right. This is a big bag of nothing.
That's right. Stupid. That's my problem with it. I mean, if you look back and you go, okay, what was it that actually stopped people from smoking? Right? It wasn't them putting the warning labels on cigarettes. That had nothing to do with it. It had nothing to do with anything that the cigarette companies did to try and quell, the idea that people should stop smoking. It was that we the people made smoking unacceptable. We started making policies and businesses to say you can't smoke inside.
When it went in and said you couldn't smoke inside a building,
it was huge.
That was the start of it. Yeah,
you can't smoke on airplanes anymore. You can't smoke inside. You can't smoke. You can't smoke. And basically, you made it sort of that people were a bit of a pariah for smoking, and that was what really reduced it became socially less acceptable to smoke cigarettes, and so that's what basically helped here. That's the kind of change that's going to be needed here, where we all have to recognize that it's socially unacceptable to have this go on, which means that the government has to take more of a stake in this and actually have something to threaten other than just saying we're going to use this as a way to collect revenue, right? We're going to penalize you by, taxing you, basically creating a higher level tax and basically, billing you billions of dollars so that you can fund all these things. It's like, that's just theater to me.
Yeah. So basically the story will amount to nothing. It'll amount to a settlement.
Ultimately, I think there's settlements coming, right? There's going to be settlements coming, right? That will be the news. And I'm sure we'll report on that. I'm sure we'll report on the fact that, they've settled with they've settled with New York, they settled with California, they settled with 33 of the state's attorneys generals, and Facebook will pay a hefty fine. And they're going to put together programs, and there will be a new funded cover. They'll use the money that is being generated by Facebook to create a new independent council. I'm sure the word, czar will be, a social media czar will be elected. It's just annoying.
It's I don't want to be the big curmudgeon here, but I tend to be. But Pam and I were at the airport the other day waiting, and we're just standing, talking, waiting to get on the plane. And there's probably 150 people that we can see at our gate at the airport at Cleveland Hopkins. And maybe 3 people were not on their phones.
Right.
I mean, every one of them. And we're like, oh my God, like this is, and then we even mentioned, it's like, what, in 1950, was everybody smoking? And was that the thing that everybody was doing? Well, now today it's everyone is looking at their screens, and specifically probably on Instagram or TikTok.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or the older generation, maybe that was Facebook. So
TikTok or something. Yeah, consuming media, basically.
Consuming media, looking down, not talking to anyone.
Well, speaking of which, we'll cover our last story here very quickly, which is that trust in that media has reached a 2016 low, which 2016 was the lowest of lows of lows of lows. But it has now matched that, this coming courtesy of Gallup itself, basically opening up by saying that 32% of Americans who say they trust the mass media a great deal or a fair amount to report the news in full and fair and accurate ways has tied Gallup's lowest historical reading previously recorded in 2016. Although trust in media currently matches the historical low, it was statistically similar in 2021, 36%, in 2022, 34%. Another 29% of U.S. adults have not very much trust, while a record high 39% register none at all. This nearly 4 in 10 Americans who completely lack confidence in the media is the highest on record by 1 percentage point. It is 12 points higher than the 2016 reading, which came amid sharp criticisms of the media from then presidential candidate Donald Trump, making the current assessment of the media the grimmest in Gallup's history. In 2016, U.S. adults were most likely to say that they had not very much trust at all. And then there's a graph here that basically shows where none at all has now crossed over all the rest of them, and is now higher, is basically crossed over some trust or a lot of trust. And so fascinating. What do you make of this? I mean,
this is why we can't put it back in the box here. I mean, I'm just looking. This is a great little chart, by the way. We'll put this in the show notes.
Yeah.
I'm just clicking it. So this is 1976. Only 4% had no faith in the media at the time. That's right. Up to 40% now. Yeah. At that same time, 72% had a great deal of confidence in media. And that's down to 32%. So basically, everyone's getting their own feeds.
Yep.
Depending on which side you're getting, it doesn't really matter, because one saying all the other stuff is fake, and the other side saying all the other stuff is fake.
But look,
here's where we are.
Yeah, but it's interesting to me, like if you literally draw the line, it's when access to the siloed media came around, right? So 1978 is when it really seemed to, it doesn't seem to have, maybe you can argue that it's accelerated a little bit, if you were to draw the sort of median line, between 1973 and 2023, which is what, 50 years. And so, but it looks like basically it's been a steady increase. It's been
steady decrease in trust
since the advent of cable TV, right? So what we saw was siloed media basically is the cause of the lack of trust. So in other words, when we only had 3 networks, there was basically a lot of trust, and the addition of the famous Bruce Springsteen 500 channels and nothing on basically was the instigator, and it's only been accelerating a little bit since the internet, right?
And now you have thousands.
Yeah.
And thousands, but
millions. I mean, infinite, right?
I mean, infinite amount of media, but the channels still are owned by a lot of the same people.
Yeah. Well, that's it, right? I mean, that's the aggregation of all of those things. You sort of saw a mass dispersion, and then you sort of had an aggregation, sort of coming back together, where, we've talked about many times in this show, where media companies have to be, tiny or huge in order to attract an audience. And if you're huge, you're obviously trying to create a broader swath of an audience. And so thus what you do is you silo that, you silo it even from yourself, right? You think of a Warner Discovery, right, where there's definitely silos of audiences based in different channels.
Yeah. So if it just continues, you basically will have the majority of people that don't trust media at all. And there's nothing we can do about this. This is just happening.
Well, I think the opportunity, I think, is so I think this was made. So Edelman, of course, does their trust barometer every year, and basically, by the way, found a very similar thing this year.
Well, I think that one was about business media in general. The media was not as trustworthy, the lowest amount, but they trusted businesses,
right?
More.
Well, this is the thing. It's like people don't trust media; they trust people, right? So they trust their collectives, right? Their groups, their communities that they've become siloed into. And it's interesting because I go back, and I should probably do some writing on this, but I go back to there was a very interesting corollary that happened in the U.S. back in the late 1800s when newspapers began to become a commoditized, the ability to create newspapers became commoditized. And so you saw the growth of what were then called penny papers, which were basically free newspapers built around tribal communities, right? So whether politics or religion or local newspapers or local community groups or even businesses, we used to talk about old business newspapers, back when we were doing examples of this old marketing, and all of those things created this. So what it was the birth of, which we all learned in history class, was the birth of yellow journalism, right? Yep. Where you had such a huge amount of gossip and lies and misinformation in these newspapers that were meant to basically sell newspapers. And so the thing that stopped it was when the government stepped in, the U.S. Supreme Court stepped in and started talking about the rights of privacy. This sort of made some interesting judgments on the way that privacy would be held and the way that media could be held accountable for privacy as well as accuracy and information. And so I think without that, without some big sort of either community-driven or government-driven idea, this just continues. I mean, this is what we've been talking about, right? Whether or not the government will actually step in and say it is social media's responsibility, or it is, the responsibility of these companies to put accurate information out into the world and be responsible for it, because we clearly can't be, right? So many people have said Twitter is the town square. It's not. It's the town. Twitter is the town. It's not the town square. It's basically everybody has a voice there and is throwing it out willy-nilly. So it's anyway. I get off on a rant, but I think it's a challenge, but I think it's an opportunity for businesses. I think it's an opportunity for marketing. And
I have in my rave, I'm going to talk a little bit about this, so it has something to do with the opportunities there.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's get to rants and raves. Let's get to our rants and raves here. So this is where we go off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave that makes us feel like, it makes us feel like Travis Kelce when Taylor's in attendance, or Travis Kelce when Taylor isn't in attendance. That's what we call it.
Do you think that he looks up there and doesn't see her and then goes like, wah, wah?
Well, he knows. He knows when she's going to come or when not going to come. I have to imagine. It's not like they go.
because if he's in more plays,
my girlfriend shows up today.
She's there.
Yeah.
If he's going to get targeted 13 times, Taylor's in attendance. If he gets targeted 5 times, she's not coming.
That's right. Well, then you look at so does the opposing coach look up to go, ooh, is Taylor here today? Because that's my weather barometer.
Yes.
Or whether I need to double Kelce.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because the opposing coach probably served under Jim Harbaugh at
Michigan.
There it is. So there you go.
It's such a random.
Because the whole scandal the whole Michigan scandal.
Oh, I gotcha. Okay.
Anyways, I'm not going to talk about.
Wow. There you
Michigan
go. Why don't you go first and then I'll go second?
Okay.
You go.
So here. So this is kind of leads into what we were just talking about. This is a great newsletter from our friend Robert Katai, B2B creator. I'll put this in the show notes, but it's entitled "The Next Big Thing in Marketing: From Content Creation to Cultivating Creators." And the thing that Robert's been talking about a lot is, instead of your content brand or your brand itself trying to build a relationship with your audience through whatever content initiative you have, you focus on a creator within your organization. So he's calling this the B2B creator. And in this case, there's a couple really good case studies in this whole thing. But the whole idea behind this is, instead of, let me give you an example with like Red Bull. So you have Red Bull, let's say Red Bull's doing a newsletter. So you could have been initially 20, 30 years ago, it could have come from Red Bull. And then it moved to like the content brand. It moves from Red Bull to Red Bulletin is the content brand. But now today, the opportunity, because of the things we're talking about with trust and the opportunity to identify with an individual, which makes it even more trustworthy, you have the core creator within that Red Bull organization being the face. You connect with that person, that creator individually, and you're getting a lot more. And so this article from Robert goes into a couple of companies that basically on Twitter, they took off the logos of their companies and put on the CEOs or put on the key creators picture next to that company on Twitter or on Threads or whatever it is, to say, hey, here's the person leading this charge. And I talked about this. I talked about this at Marketing Pros B2B quite a bit, where I said, it's a tough move, but you have to have faith. Instead of your email newsletters coming from whoever, your company, your content brand, have them come from an individual.
Right? Don't have them come from admin or
that's right,
corporate or whatever.
It should be directly from that individual. It should be from Robert Rose or Joe Pulizzi. And if that person wants the content, that it should be like, that's where we have to be today with our content marketing if we want to be successful. So I just like this whole approach. And I think that we talked about trust a second ago. That's the opportunity. The opportunity is we trust individuals. So it's going to be so much easier for you as a content brand to lift up your creator. So that's where I think instead of just creating another content marketing program, hey, we can go ahead and say, oh, this creator here, this podcast here, this video series here, led by this person that is already trusted. There are some risks there. It's not easy for a lot of companies to do that, but the ones that can. So anyways, that's the first one. And the second one was, I'll just put this up here. TikTok is they're doing live music events now. And I think that this is a really smart move that they're getting into the event business. So anyway, I think there's such an opportunity with events and print right now. I cannot tell you. So I love the fact that TikTok they're going around doing the music experience from TikTok. So this is what we're showing right now is from TikTok site, announcing TikTok in the mix. You know, I am not a TikTok fan at all, but it's a really smart move to start going around the country and doing these events.
Well, this is my prediction for next year, which is where all the social media platforms that survive are going to become much more media-like and much less social, right? I mean, it's going to become much more content consumption than it is content creation. So what that means is that there is an opportunity just to tie your two stories together, an opportunity for creators to become the media through social media by which gets consumed, right? But success will no longer be measured by engagement or number of comments, et cetera. It'll be by number of people who consume your content and then do something, right? That basically take an action out of that, right? So
if you look at, and we talked about this in Killing Marketing. If you talk about building trust with somebody, that in-person component is critical.
Huge.
So what is that event experience that you have with your customers? Apple, of course, does this really, really, really well, which is why Apple is Apple. So we need to figure that out as we move forward. And Microsoft obviously is trying to figure this out as well. So I think a lot of companies have been, they've forgotten a little bit of that in-person and print and other types of experiences, and they've opted for 100% digital. And I think that's a mistake.
Yep. 100%.
All right.
100%.
What do you got?
Okay. So two quick things here. One is a quick rave, and we'll just link to it in the show notes because I think it's just an interesting little data point for us to take going forward. Basically, Washington, D.C. the council has put a plan in place, the first of its kind ever, that would issue government-funded vouchers to city residents to donate to local journalism outlets of their choice. Fascinating program here. Basically, the bill, if it gets passed, and it hasn't passed yet, would mark the first time that a local news voucher program would be implemented by a local government here in the U.S. Huge step forward. I think this is really a fascinating thing and an interesting idea to fund local journalism. I'm, as ever, hopeful that one of the things that could come out of this would not be that the government has to fund it. I would see this could just as easily be set up through a nonprofit funded by business. And so I just think there's a really interesting idea here, which is basically subsidize local journalism, because It's just not a great business model right now. But it's such an important piece of the fabric of our country and the fabric of what it is we do. So I just love it and wanted to throw it out there.
Well, I love that idea. And then, so this is great. But the other thing on top of this is, and we've talked about this many times, if you get the core HQ companies in your local city to band together and build a consortium to fund this, I think it's a no-brainer. It's such goodwill. It's such great marketing as well. And you're supporting local journalism. There's nothing more pure, right? Than to do that, to support your local coverage of your sports games. That's right. And what's going on at city council, and it's not being done because you're right. It's a bad business model.
That's right. Today. And brands are just so afraid of getting tacked into the negativity of investigative journalism, or what's going on in government, or what's going on in the local, police department, or fires or burglaries, or, whatever the news regularly covers. That's been a piece of friction, and I just think I think it's a false fear. I don't think they need to be afraid of it.
And you got one more quick one.
One very quickly. Basically, we'll also link to this. It's just, and I don't mean to throw this article under the bus, and I certainly don't mean to throw this. I don't. I really don't. I really don't. This is a sample of what I'm seeing a lot of recently, which is the headlines in terms of marketing needs better marketing. It's like, okay. Thank you. And basically I've just seen this over the course of the last, 2 months, 3 months, which is all of these conference sessions, keynotes, all this kind of thing, where the headlines are, and this is what sort of set me off, or sort of grinds my gears, or whatever you want to say. Basically, it's these 4 bullet points, right? The need for CMOs to better explain and demonstrate marketing's commercial value to internal audiences. How often have we seen that, right? How it's almost a cliche at this point that CMOs are struggling to make the case to their CEOs or their board or their internal audiences about what it is they're doing to demonstrate marketing's value. Second bullet, the ongoing battle between short-term and long-term marketing, or how an illusion of control in today's decentralized marketing landscape keeps marketers from exercising their still considerable influence on what people think and do. The pervasiveness of dullness, too much marketing's output, and difference between missing the mark and missing the point. How data proves we are not using data very well. I mean, all of these are such hackneyed ideas. It's nothing new here, right? And so, and again, I don't mean to throw this particular article under the bus, although it's sort of the quintessential example of stuff that I'm seeing, which is that marketers struggle to basically justify their existence. And it goes back to that thing that I talked about 2 shows ago, which was this whole idea that CEOs, senior leadership, investors, whatever sort of audience we're talking about, they love great marketing. They don't love marketers. And that's always been the case. It's been the case going 100 years ago. It's been the case. Nobody likes watching marketers struggle, fight in the arena, get in there and battle every day, but they love sort of strong brands, strong marketing, super creative viral campaigns. Everybody loves great work until they don't. And it's like, what I'd like to do is change that conversation, right? Change that conversation. It's like, okay, we know that CMOs need to explain better to their thing, but what is it that CEOs or the audiences should learn to understand? Because it's not that, it's not that we haven't tried to tell the story in so many different ways. It's that for some reason, they don't get it. And so there's an interesting corollary, which is, if basically we're banging our heads against the wall forever, it might not be about us, right? It might not be about marketing. And so that's all I want to do is say, like, okay, we get it. We get it. It's hard to be in marketing these days. This is why we are marketers. We love the challenge. We love what we do.
You know what's great? If you're at a party or you're talking to people and they say, "What do you do for a living?" You say, "I'm in marketing." It's a real quick end of the conversation.
Yeah.
So it just is. If you don't know, you don't know.
Right. Yeah.
If you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't.
Well, you know what happens is that what I find is that everybody tells me, when it's like, oh, I'm in marketing and I help, marketers and help them tell their story better, or whatever it is I say at a party, and they all go, you know what I hate about marketing? You know what really bugs me about marketers? It's like, so it's always sort of that kind of response, like, okay, tell me what tell me your problem, right?
Yeah, it's like I'm a biochemical engineer. You know what I hate about biochemical engineering?
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. That's exactly what I'm talking about, right? The only other profession that I think can identify with this is lawyers, right?
Lawyers and accountants, I think.
Yeah.
Because
accountants to a certain degree, but even that is considered sort of a specialty skill.
Well, but it's the same thing that your example fits. It's like, I don't like attorneys and lawyers, but I love really good lawyering.
Exactly. That's exactly
I love when I don't like accountants, but I love when my numbers work.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Crazy. So
that's right. Anyways. All right. What are you doing this week? What's going on?
We are getting ready for our big night at the races for Orange Effect Foundation. It's coming up Friday, November 3rd. Thank you, sir, Robert, for your donation.
I'm sponsoring a race. I don't even know what that means, but I'm super happy to do it.
You're super really happy. Cool. You're going to have your name at the top, or whatever you want at the top, and it's going to be announced to everyone that
I wanted to have a picture of you like doing something goofy. That's what I really wanted.
If that's what you want to submit as your logo, I'm sure that somebody will let you do that. But anyways, I have right now, so everybody listening, I have 20 more horse names that I need to sell. Robert, you can't buy any more. You've already given enough.
All right.
So I need, it's $20 a piece. Go to oefraces.com. That's oefraces.com. And you'll see that it's $20 a piece for a horse name. You get to submit the horse name of your choosing. If it's my horse name, you want to know, my horse name is called Travis Swift. That's my horse name.
That's pretty
Travis Swift coming around the bend. Here goes Travis. He's good. Okay. Anyways, so if you have an opportunity, it goes to a great cause. All the money goes to kids who need speech therapy but cannot support it. That's been our effort for Orange Effect Foundation for the last 15 years. Oh my gosh, 15 years we've been doing this thing. So thank you to those of supporting.
I can't promise that I'm not going to go buy a horse. I can't promise that. I can't promise you that I'm not going to, because I have so many names that are good. Monkey Butt would be a good one.
There's some really interesting names. It's going to be very difficult for the announcer, I think, to get through some of these.
Okay.
As they call out, basically, for those of you that don't know, if you've been a night at the races, you see an old simulcast. We don't know where it's been, but that's the race for that one. We have 10 races. Yeah. So we watch that go, and then fantastic. The 10 horses' names are the names that people have purchased.
Yeah.
So the guy calls it. So anyways, it's and you bet on them, and if you win, you win.
Yeah.
So, what do you got going on?
Work mainly. I mean, I actually have some client travel coming up here in the next couple of weeks. We're going to do a couple of special episodes for that, and yeah, just working on client stuff and enjoying the much cooler weather here in LA and watching a little football. That's it.
And we've got the big life as usual. We've got the big 400th episode coming
400 next week.
I think we're going to celebrate by doing an hour-long podcast.
Well, we have a little surprise. I think we have a surprise. If you get on it, we have a little surprise.
Oh, I'll get on it. I'll do it. I'll do it. Yeah. Okay. I have time this week. I'll make time.
There you go.
Important. I will make time.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thanks for hanging in there, everybody. We, of course, went over like we always do. But until next week, until we see you again, and it will be our 400th episode, by the way. So until we see you then, remember, it's your story to tell. Tell it well. We'll see you next week on This Old Marketing.